Hello and welcome back to Mark's House and Garden UK. Behind me you can see the wildlife pond. I'm stood in the wildlife corner of my garden. I've been asked a few times now for an update on the wildlife pond and the wildlife garden, so I'll be giving you that update in this video. I've also got my underwater camera case here, so I'll put that on and we'll see if we can get some underwater shots. It's a bit slimy and murky at the moment, so I'm not expecting to see much. However, last night at midnight, I was out here and I did see frogs, toads and newts in the water. I have got some footage of a frog, which I'll drop into this video at some point. Quite a lot going on in the wildlife corner of my garden, which I'll share with you. I have to say this week has been taken up largely with getting the olive trees in. So that made interesting viewing, and there's a video link at the end of this one. We lifted them in with a tractor. Without further ado, let's get into it. Let's go and have a look around the wildlife pond and the wildlife garden, and I'll show you what's going on at the moment and what's about to happen. Well, I'm stood on an elevated mound which eventually will have a viewing platform, but at the moment it really is just a mound of earth, and part of it is the spoil which came out of the hole when I dug the pond. But let me just pan around and you'll see that all around this corner of the garden there are mature hedges. That's a holly hedge, and up there there's an oak tree. But just over there in the distance, you can't see it here, there is a canal. So the canal is a body of water which will be a source of wildlife. So the wildlife can quite easily travel along the hedges, which are wildlife corridors, and reach my corner of my garden, which is, I think, why we've had quite a lot of success in only 1 year. This pond has been dug. We've had frogs, toads and newts already. I've got footage of them. I know they're there. I've done videos, and if you want to see them, I'll put links in. Whilst I'm up here, look at this amazing thistle. Isn't that incredible? And nettles. I also always leave nettles at some point. We've got the hawthorn as well in the hedge. Native hedge, quite bushy at the moment. It will need a trim at some point, but I won't do that during bird nesting season, which in the UK I think is sort of late February to late August. Foxgloves everywhere. You'll see my wildflower mound in a moment, which I haven't seeded this year, but has still got quite a few flowers in it. Nevertheless, I just very carefully step down this mound and get close to the water's edge. That there is an underground corridor. There's a tunnel which brings the wildlife from over there into the water. So any frogs or toads or newts that want to get into the water but don't want to risk travelling across this mown area here can do so in this underground tunnel here. I did a video on that. That is my log pile, which has been sat there now for nearly 2 years. And whilst it looks inert, not doing much, it's actually full of wildlife. It's amazing what will be going on under there. And what you have to remember is that rotting wood, bacteria, microorganisms is the bottom end of the food chain. It's all about biodiversity. So by having a dead wood environment in your garden, you encourage that bottom end of the food chain, and you encourage the diversity. Because I've got a little GoPro camera, I can poke inside it and we can have a look. We won't see much, but we know what's going on. Half of the logs are buried in the earth, so there's an interface between the earth and the air and the logs. Now, underneath there, amongst these nettles, is a hibernaculum, which is essentially a great big underground cavity which I dug out, filled full of rocks and rubble and clay pots, put a bit of roofing felt over the top and then buried. And then there's a paving slab in there which gives an entrance. I used an old soil pipe as an entrance. So under there, the wildlife can go to hibernate in the winter time. Can't see it. You wouldn't know it's there. I've just told you it's there, but it's quite mysterious. I love the idea. Here are my buddleia butterfly bush. Wonderful to encourage the butterflies into the garden. I prune these every February, and the twigs always get left in a pile there. And again, if you were to dig down into that pile, you would find thousands of insects and microorganisms. Again, rich parts of a diverse food chain. Just look at this hawthorn. Look at that. You can see there's a pink tinge on those there. Wonderful. Dense hedge right next to the water where the birds can nest in the summertime and seek refuge and shelter in the wintertime. I'm going to come to the pond in a moment, don't worry. I'm not keeping you in suspense. Jack did ask me about my pond liner, so I've got a piece of pond liner and underlay to show you. But point of interest here, this is a catinus, an Indian smoke bush. These blossoms here, in about a month's time, will form these lovely big cloudy blossoms, and it looks like smoke hanging in the air. But the point about this bush is, I'm attempting to take cuttings by doing air layering. I did a video on that a few weeks ago. It's actually a month ago. And I had a sneaky peek before. And I can see roots starting to grow. I've got two. There's one in there. And there's one going on through there as well. It's great, this camera. It's on a selfie stick, so you can point it into things. And there's the second one. So hopefully I will have two. And the reason I wanted some cuttings from this bush is because it's got this kind of reddy purpley tone to its colour, and along the far side of this mound I'm creating a purple border. In fact, I'll go there now and just show you some of the plants that I've got in there. This corner is going to be the Jurassic jungle garden, and I will talk to you about these great big holes in a moment. All will be revealed. If you've not been following my channel, you might be wondering what's going on. Anyway, getting back to here. So, all kinds of purpley red tones going on along this side. So I've got Photinias there. That's a Persicaria red dragon. That is Sambucus. That's a dogwood. This is my Ajuga. Now this is a ground cover plant, and I'm trying to propagate it. So I put the parent in here, and I put the legs out here, and in actual fact it's turned out to be much more rampant than I imagined, because look, it's already running wild. So I want the whole of the bottom of this to be covered in that ground cover. It'll be a great home for wildlife. I have got some Fathias in here. They're a little bit exposed to the sunlight, but we'll see how they get on. So there we go, purpley red, and that catinus cuttings, those two catinus cuttings will also go down here into this purpley red border. Now whilst we're out here, let me give you an overview. At the entrance here, I've got two statues like griffins. They're going to be going there. Then there's going to be an archway which you enter through. All these mounds will grow up to form a barrier. So this section of the garden will be cordoned off and you'll have to enter it. This side of this mound has been given over to fruit trees, which will be providing food for the wildlife in the autumn time. So I've got a pear there, I've got black currants, red currants, and I've also got blueberries. So that's what's happening on this side of this mound. These rocks, you can see several quite large boulders. I'm in the process of moving them. I think there are 7 or 8 great big boulders. They were in my garden when I moved in. They used to be over there, and I had them moved over here when we dug these great big craters. And now I'm in the process of trying to single-handedly wheel them out on these rollers. So, what's going on here? Well, I do want extra bodies of water. It was never my intention to put fish in the wildlife pond, but I would like some fish. I'd like some British native fish like roach and possibly perch and tench. So I've created these extra ponds, and in doing so I've also created the mounds which I'm planting into. It's been a bit delayed, this. It should have been full of water by now, but I have been concentrating on the olive grove which is just over there. My neighbour is about to give me a lot of old carpet. They've just had their whole house recarpeted. That's tomorrow, so the carpet will be arriving tomorrow, and then the pond liner should be coming next week and getting fitted shortly thereafter. Talking of pond liner, Jack, you asked what sort of pond liner I use. Well, it's from pondkeeper.co.uk. They actually gave me my pond liner for free to mention it. And that's what the pond liner looks and feels like. It's like a sort of a very, very tough, heavy duty, I don't know, you'd struggle to puncture that. That's why it makes a good pond liner. And this is the underlay. It's like a very thick felt. The idea is you put that underneath the pond liner to protect the pond liner from being punctured by tree roots and rocks. And you can use the underlay. That pond there is completely lined with that liner that you've just seen and that underliner, that underlay that you've just seen. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to line it with carpets as far as possible, then buy some underlay if I need it, and then the liner will go on top. Incidentally, if you're going to measure a pond, you have to go twice the depth plus the length and twice the depth plus the width. And it turns out to be quite a lot bigger than you think. This bit here alone needs a liner which is 14 meters by 5 meters. Quite a big liner. Right, let's have a look at the pond, and then we'll the camera and we'll show you what's going on underneath the water. Again, Pond Keeper donated very many of the plants that are in here. I've left the grass long around the outside to provide a haven for the wildlife. At night when I come out here doing my newt watch, that's where the frogs will be sitting, right here in this long grass, and as you walk past you'll hear them plop into the water, and then you might just see the back legs pumping as they swim off into the depths for safety. Lovely iris, and I was very lucky because my sister-in-law has a pond and it's kind of overgrown with these irises, so I borrowed a few last year and they've come up really well. I basically put one there, but they have this kind of rhizome root system, and it grows along underneath these boulders and then pops up again. You can see, lovely, and look at the beautiful yellow flower on that there. Isn't that incredible? Wonderful. Down here I've got some snake's head fritillaries just down here in the grass planted. They had those lovely flowers on, like an upside down bell with a checkerboard on it. And I'm attempting here to collect the seed. That's what that's all about. Boulders around the edge, an important feature of any pond really, is so that if wildlife falls in, it can escape. So if a hedgehog should accidentally drop in there, it can climb out. Here's a rheum. And this has got its feet directly in the water. That's not doing as well as I hoped. It started off well this year, but it seems to have sort of failed a bit. Look at this prehistoric pond plant here. Isn't that lovely? You see that reaching up. Is that called mare's tail? I don't know. If you know what that's called, put it in the description box. Let's call that plant number 1. If you can identify it, put it in the comments box below. Various boulders here which I've positioned for birds to land on and drink the water, which they do. And I often see birds bathing and flapping the wings in the water to brush off the dust. Another prehistoric looking plant here. Look at this one. Look at that. Like a water bamboo grass. And again, it's planted directly into the soil around the pond. So that's got its feet in the water and it's doing quite well now. It's shooting up. That's last year's growth, which has died back. More of these lovely irises. And look at this. Now, isn't that exquisite? Absolutely beautiful. And now, as we go down, look at how that lovely pondweed there has sort of infiltrated the rocks and grown through. And again, it's providing an interface between the air and the water so that wildlife can get in and out. And the same is true of these vertical plants. At night, I see a lot of dragonfly nymphs and larvae in the water. And in the summertime, you will see the dragonflies landing on these irises, going down to the bottom and dipping their tails in the water. And what they're doing is they're laying eggs. Again, it's an interface between our world in the air above the water and their world. And you'll be going through that interface in a moment when I put my waterproof camera case on. These are arum lilies. They have a beautiful white flower. They're sitting with their feet in the water. They love being wet. You can hear some knocking in the background probably. My neighbour Rod is already doing his DIY. It's 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. He does work hard. Rod was the person that helped with the olive tree planting this week. But just look at that. It's a white flower on an arum lily. And apparently, I'm told, that is because it's a moth which is a nighttime insect which pollinates it. And the white is more easily visible in the twilight. So there we go. Lots of duckweed on the surface of my pond, which I'm very happy about. I encourage it. Now, there's a piece of polythene in the water down here. You might not be able to see it, but just down there is a piece of polythene, and I've left that in there deliberately because I saw a great crested newt, a female great crested newt, laying eggs on it. She had her back legs, and she had that in her back legs, and she was curled round it. She was laying eggs, and the next day when I looked at it, I could see the eggs. I've left that there. It's not a piece of litter. And then we have this green slime. Now, a neighbour of mine came round and said, I love your pond, I really do love it, but what's he going to do about all this green slime? Well, my answer to that is I'm going to leave it. I'm a great believer in letting nature take its course and create its own balance. Backdrop there, look. Catinus, butterfly bush, twig pile, log pile, hibernaculum, and there's that mound where I started the video. Let's have a look at the wildflowers. These are all self-seeded from last year's wildflower meadow. So essentially, for one box of seed which I purchased last year, I've got double my bang for my buck. And I've had some of these as cut flowers in my kitchen as well. Look, aren't they incredible? Look at the orange, fiery orange colour. More coming up there. And on that one there, look, that's what I call frog spit. I don't know what you call it. See that little white blob of foam on there? I call that frog spit. And I believe some kind of insect lays its eggs in that. More wildlife, more diversity, more biodiversity. Look at this incredible poppy here. It's dampened by the mist and the rain at night, and I hope that will open up shortly when the sun hits it. Lots of poppies here. I think that's a forget-me-not, but again, look, just stunning, dainty little flowers all the way along. We have another buddleia, some foxgloves. Let me just go and show you something which is of interest. I've planted my gunneras, and I'm going to do a video on this shortly, a very short one, a short snappy one. Gunneras are banned, so I've not been able to plant them. I'm lying to you. I've basically sunk the tubs. I want to enjoy these gunneras, but at the moment they're banned. You're not allowed to plant them, propagate them, sell them, share them, give them away, because they're seen as a very invasive species. So I want to enjoy them. I'm allowed to have them. You are allowed to keep them. So I've sunk my tubs. Look at that flower spike. Let me put my hand next to that so that you can see just how big it is. Now my hand, span of my hand is probably about 8 inches. So that is, well, shall we say that's 18 inches, that's flower spike. That's one of the problems with gunneras. They set up home next to watercourses, and all those seeds drop into the river and flow downstream and propagate, and that's why it's very, very invasive. Lovely leaves starting to appear down there. You can see them kind of uncurling, and then that there will get as big as, if not bigger than that. And look at the sort of vase shape it has. As it collects the rain runs down into the centre. And look at these spiky, well, that spikiness on there. I mean, if you were a slug, you wouldn't want to climb up that to have your lunch. So again, that's evolved as a kind of a self-defense mechanism, I think. Incredible prehistoric looking plant. Incredible. I've got 4 of these. There's another 2 to go in. Well, that's my solution to the gunnerer ban. Now here are our boulders, which are, again, I'm using levers and other ideas. And my neighbour did offer to help me move them, but I love a challenge, so I'm trying my best to do it myself. This area here, I've got 3 tree ferns. They're sat in my fernery courtyard at the moment, but they're going here. I'm going to have another tree fern garden. One of them has a lovely bend on it, so it's going to reach out over the water. How am I going to line these? Well, on some kind of underlay and then pond liner. And I've got a laser level, so I'll draw a horizontal line around the earth. I'll cut into it with a saw, and then I'll knock stakes into that, which will be wrapped around the pond liner, which will force the pond liner in, so you won't see the pond liner. Then that grass will grow down over it. Right, One last thing from above the water is this plant here is called brook lime. It's an essential plant for people who want newts because they can lay their eggs on it. Brook lime and Pondkeeper have a wildlife pond plant mix. I'll put a link to that. I don't mind pushing Pondkeeper because they were so supportive last year, and you know, if you can help them, I would encourage you to do so because they really were helpful with me. So, do you want to see underneath there? Well, give me a moment. I'll put my waterproof camera on and I'll just get some shots underneath. So I now have the waterproof case on my camera. You can probably still hear me. The sound does work to a limited extent, but it will stop working the minute the camera case goes under the water. It can't transmit through water apparently. So we will go underneath there. It's been a great investment, this little camera. It's like a GoPro, but it was only about 80 quid. I can't afford a GoPro. GoPros are about 400. But it's been a great investment because I've been able to use it for my videos in general. It's got quite high definition. But anyway, I waffle and digress as usual. Let's get underneath the water. Let's get submerged and let's have a look. First of all, look at that lovely mossy rock there, but let's get in. You'll see the camera submerge itself beneath the water and then you'll hear me disappear. Isn't that amazing and cool? We're going to go in again. This is the shallow, but this is where I will see newts at night time. They kind of lurk around here and you'll see them. Often in couples actually. And larvae. This is a frog's eye view of the margin of the pond as I kind of walk round. This is where the birds come to bathe. And let's go in again and have another look. I'm keeping it near the surface and stay in contact with my voice. Giving you some footage. I've just seen a water boatman in front of the lens there. I do hope we're picking up some nice footage. The water lilies have started to come up. Can you see the lovely leaves there? Let's go back in. I'm struggling to reach far enough, so I'm actually going to very carefully step into the water, probably slip now and give you a you've been framed moment and end up swimming. So that there is a water hawthorn, which is a curious plant because it dies off when the weather goes warm and it springs back into life when the weather's cold. It's given me so much pleasure. I come out here most nights, a bit sad really, approaching midnight, and do a kind of an audit on my frogs, toads and newts. Last night I saw 5 great crested newts, 2 smooth newts and 2 frogs. I'll get one of these days a much longer pole and we'll go further down into the depths. But for now, I shall leave it there. I hope you've enjoyed this update and I'll see you soon for some more wildlife pond, wildlife garden, tree fern, gunnera, wildflower, log pile, twig pile, buddleia, catinus, Jurassic jungle adventures. Bye for now.